Acorn squash is one of the healthiest foods that you can include in your regular diet. It provides almost all the necessary nutrients needed by our body. Details pertaining to calories in acorn squash found in different dishes are given below. Quick fact: the acorn squash is one of the most nutritious foods in the world, and therefore, it was included by Johnny Bowden, a renowned nutritionist, in his list of "150 healthiest foods on Earth." The acorn is a winter squash with yellow-orange flesh and it tastes sweet. The squash is characterized by longitudinal ridges on the surface, and it is green in color. The squash can be easily grown at home. Information on calories present in cooked, baked, raw and other forms of acorn squash can be found below. Acorn squash calories. Acorn squash is a nutritious food which contains a high amount of fibers. The number of calories present in a raw acorn squash per 100 grams of weight is 40. A medium-sized squash contains 172 calories, 45 grams carbohydrates, 3 grams proteins, 13 milligrams sodium, and no fats or cholesterol. Acorn squash calories contained in a single cup baked form of 200 grams account for 4%. The acorn squash is generally boiled or baked before its consumption. Calories remaining in acorn squash after boiling are lesser than after baking it. Baked squash contains 56 calories/100 grams, while 34 calories are present in a boiled one. Here is information on the different dishes made with acorn squash and calories present in them. Did you know? Acorn squash, which comes from the Americas, was the staple food of Native American people. When Europeans first saw this squash, they had mistaken it for a melon. Acorn squash and apple soup. The acorn squash and apple soup dish contains 133 calories in a single serving, 331 grams. Other nutrients present in this dish include dietary fibers, 5%, fats, 4%, carbohydrates, 8%, cholesterol, 2%, etc. Wild rice and acorn squash. The total number of calories present in one serving, 200 grams, of this dish is 150. Other nutrients present in the dish include fats, 5%, dietary fibers, 16%, cholesterol, 0%, proteins, 11%, carbohydrates, 9%, etc. Squash rings. The acorn squash rings contain 15 calories in a single serving of 17 grams. Carbohydrates, 1%, vitamin C, 6%, sodium, 1%, are the other nutrients in this dish. With brown sugar. The acorn squash mixed with brown sugar contains 122 calories per serving. Out of the 122 calories, 11 calories are contributed by 1 teaspoon of brown sugar. A single tablespoon of butter spread adds 25 calories to this dish. The remaining 86 calories are contributed by acorn squash. Baked winter-type squash. A single cup of baked winter squash contains 151 calories. Carbohydrates contribute the maximum, that is 73% of the calories. The calories which come from fats and proteins are 23% and 4% respectively. Stuffed acorn squash. The number of acorn squash calories in its stuffed form is 229. Out of the 229 calories, 80% come from carbohydrates, 13% from fats, and 7% from proteins. Roasted squash. This dish is prepared by roasting the squash for 1 hour. Mixture of butter and sugar is applied to the inner portion by cutting the squash into 2 halves of the squash. There are 154 calories in 1/2 of the squash. It is composed of 27 grams carbohydrates, 6 grams fats, 1.8 grams proteins, and 3.2 grams proteins. Acorn squash. General information. Squash is a highly nutritious food, and winter squash forms an important part of Native American diet. It belongs to the Cucurbitaceae family. Botanical name of the squash is Cucurbita pepo. In olden days, winter squash was grown only for their seeds. The pulp of squash was not consumed owing to its bitter taste. Later on, Squashes were grown for their sweet taste. Normally, the acorn squash is green in color. However, some of the new varieties possess splashes of yellow and orange color on their surface. Average weight of the newer varieties ranges from 1–3 pounds. Squashes are used as a substitute for pumpkin. The acorn squash is used in pumpkin pie recipes and also for soups in the form of puree. Since the size of acorn squashes is small, it is preferred over other winter squashes for consumption. The acorn squash can be used for consumption in different ways. Baking, stuffing, keeping in microwaves, etc. are some of the ways to prepare a squash for consumption. Antioxidants in acorn squash. Antioxidants are known to heal our body from the wear and tear caused by free radicals. The acorn squash is a rich source of antioxidants. Beta-carotene antioxidant that is present in this squash minimizes the damage caused to our body cells by free radicals. Therefore, consumption of squashes helps in maintaining vitality of our body systems. The details about calories in acorn squash present in different dishes provide us a rough idea about its nutritional value. Since the acorn squash is a nutritious food, incorporating it in our diet should help maintain our body in a healthy state.